Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stoic Capsule. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stepped outside your house and suddenly felt like someone was already watching? That odd moment when you open the door and poof, your neighbor appears out of nowhere, watering the same patch of grass for the third time that day. Sounds familiar? Well, trust me, that's not always your imagination playing tricks. Sometimes the walls really do have ears, and the hedges hide more than just leaves. There are neighbors who don't just wave politely from across the street. They blur the line between friendliness and full-on surveillance. And when that happens, your peaceful home can start to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a stage, where every move is under the spotlight. If you've ever lowered your voice in your own kitchen just in case someone might be listening, congratulations. Your instincts are doing their job. They're trying to protect you. Because here's the truth. Some neighbors aren't simply nosy. They're actively monitoring you. In this video, I'll reveal 5 undeniable signs that your neighbor has crossed the line from casual curiosity into dangerous obsession. These aren't small quirks you can brush off. They're red flags, serious ones that can disrupt your peace of mind if you fail to recognize them. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know how to spot the warning signals before they turn into a threat. Parked right in your driveway. Sign 1. They show up every single time you leave your house. Think about it. How many times have you stepped outside only to notice a particular neighbor suddenly appear again and again and again? That's not just coincidence. Often, your instincts sense something long before your brain connects the dots. And I'm not talking about those harmless little encounters, the quick nod when you both check the mail on a Saturday morning. No, this is different. This is the unsettling pattern where someone seems magnetically drawn to your movements, where coincidence slowly morphs into calculation, where casual attention transforms into something far closer to surveillance. Let me share an example. David, a retired firefighter I once knew, had a simple routine: evening walks after dinner. At first, he barely noticed when a neighbor 3 houses down happened to be near his car as David strolled past. Harmless, right? Maybe coincidence. But soon it became impossible to ignore. No matter what time David walked, early evening, late night, even in the pouring rain, that same neighbor was there, pretending to organize his garage, sweeping a driveway that was already spotless, leaning against his car, scrolling endlessly on his phone. What began as mild unease quickly escalated into something darker, a heavy feeling that David's steps weren't just being observed, they were being anticipated. Psychologists call this hypervigilant observation. It's when someone studies your habits so carefully they can predict your next move before you even make it. And that's dangerous. Because patterns aren't random, they're built through focus, intention, and often an unhealthy fixation. A neighbor who tracks your life this closely isn't just curious. They're crossing boundaries, convincing themselves that your routine somehow belongs to them. The Stoics, long before security cameras or Wi-Fi networks ever existed, understood this kind of hidden threat. They knew that real safety doesn't come from walls, locks, or watchtowers. It comes from the mind. Marcus Aurelius once warned that disturbances don't rise from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. In other words, danger begins in the way we interpret what's happening around us. So when that gut feeling tells you something is off, don't dismiss it. Trust it. Observe carefully. But also don't let fear cloud your judgment. The goal isn't to panic or spiral into paranoia. The goal is to understand what's happening and then respond with clarity and strategy. So how do you protect yourself when coincidence begins to harden into creeping certainty? The first step is simple, but powerful. Document everything. Calmly, systematically, keep a private record of dates, times, and every detail of what you notice, no matter how small. A neighbor appearing at odd hours, an unusual pattern of activity. Trust alone is never enough when it comes to personal security. What you need is evidence. And this is where technology becomes your ally. Install cameras. Review the footage. Patterns that might seem invisible in the moment, a neighbor hovering near your home. Just minutes after you leave begin to reveal themselves over time. This isn't just about restoring your peace of mind. It's about creating a trail of proof. Something essential if the situation ever escalates into a legal battle. Another tactic is to disrupt predictability. Change your routes. Leave at different times. Park your car in a new spot. Watch carefully does your neighbor's behavior shift with you? Because if they're truly monitoring you, they'll adjust unnaturally quickly. That's not paranoia. That's vigilance. It's the ability to see the landscape of your life clearly, to notice when someone is trying to redraw the map of your daily routine. David, the retired firefighter we spoke about earlier, eventually confronted the reality of his situation. But he didn't lash out. He didn't accuse blindly. Instead, he chose the Stoic way, calm, rational, and prepared. He altered his schedule without warning. He documented his neighbor's repeated presence in detail. And when the behavior finally escalated, when that neighbor trespassed onto his lawn late at night, David didn't crumble under fear. He quietly involved the local authorities. Because he trusted his instincts, remained composed, and acted strategically, David reclaimed his peace of mind without ever descending into rage or panic. The hard truth is this: if you repeatedly feel watched, you probably are. The mind often detects danger before the conscious brain admits it. Ignoring that feeling isn't a sign of strength, it's an act of self-betrayal. True strength is in acknowledging the threat, protecting your peace, and moving forward with calm, unshakable confidence. Your home, your sanctuary, your very mind deserves nothing less. Sign 2. Their technology is focused on you. Now here's the second sign, and it's far more insidious. Because unlike footsteps crunching on gravel or a knock at your door, this one doesn't announce itself. It slips quietly through the air around you. In today's digital age, surveillance doesn't require clumsy effort. A single lens angled the wrong way, a hidden device no larger than a coin, or even a router intercepting your signals. That's all it takes to strip your privacy bare. If you've noticed strange details like a neighbor's security camera pointed not just at their yard but directly into yours, or even at your living room window where your children play, you need to understand something important. This isn't laziness. It isn't poor installation. It's deliberate. And the toll it takes is subtle at first. A restless night's sleep. An unexplained irritation you can't quite name. A growing hesitation to open your blinds in the morning. But then it deepens. Anxiety doesn't just arrive suddenly, it grows roots. And those roots begin to twist through every corner of your daily life. The home that once felt like your safest refuge slowly transforms into an invisible cage. You start doubting yourself, questioning whether you're just imagining it all. But deep down, your instincts are screaming warnings your rational mind is too polite or too afraid to accept. Your space is being invaded, and in today's world, technology has made this kind of intrusion disturbingly effortless. A neighbor doesn't need to be a hacker or some tech genius to cast a shadow over your daily existence. A smartphone left recording near your yard. A Wi-Fi signal quietly capturing conversations. Smart devices in your house glitching at odd, unsettling hours. These aren't random quirks. They're cracks in the walls of your peace. And every day you ignore them, those cracks widen. The psychological impact of living under silent observation is corrosive. It eats away at freedom, at spontaneity, at the simple joy of living without self-consciousness. Suddenly, you stop singing in the kitchen. You hesitate before stepping outside. You measure your laughter, your arguments, even your grief, until one day, you realize you're no longer really living. You're performing. Constantly editing yourself for an unseen audience you never invited and never agreed to entertain. But here's what a Stoic would remind you. While the violation of your privacy may be real, the surrender of your peace is still a choice. Marcus Aurelius taught that what truly stands between you and ruin isn't what happens to you. It's how you choose to respond. Your neighbor's devices may be beyond your direct control, but the defense of your mind, your safety, and your dignity, that is entirely in your hands. And so, you must act not out of panic, but with deliberate precision. Walk your property, as if seeing it for the very first time. Look higher. Look closer. Cameras can hide in light fixtures, in fake birdhouses, even in the branches of trees. Strange Wi-Fi signals that appear only when you're home. Those aren't harmless glitches. They may be the first signs of digital intrusion. Battery drains on your phone. Smart devices activating without your command. These are warning flares you cannot ignore. So, arm yourself with technology of your own. Use encrypted networks, firewall systems, cameras positioned to guard, not to spy. Fortify your digital gates the way a seasoned commander strengthens his city before a siege. But above all, understand this. The greatest victory isn't simply surviving under surveillance. It's refusing to let fear become your warden. Set your boundaries, physical, digital, and mental. And once they are in place, live fully within them, untouched in spirit, no matter who lurks in the shadows. Because true freedom is not the absence of intrusion, it's the refusal to surrender your mind to it. Sign 3. They know private details they shouldn't. And this brings us to the third sign. Did you know that in today's world, a person's private life can often be reconstructed from less than 5 overheard conversations? In an age where information is currency, A neighbor who listens too closely isn't just being curious. They're quietly building a blueprint of your life. It often starts innocently enough. A casual comment about your sister's new job in Phoenix, even though you never mentioned it. Outside your own four walls, or a neighbor congratulating you on those expensive sneakers you ordered online, sneakers you hadn't even unboxed yet. It's a slow creep, subtle at first, almost invisible. But here's the thing: once you notice it, you can't unsee it. A neighbor complimenting your new haircut, harmless enough. But a neighbor who somehow knows you got that haircut at exactly 2:30 p.m. last Tuesday, and that you paid for it with your Visa card, that's not friendliness, that's surveillance. And what's happening behind the curtain is even more unsettling. Psychologically, these kinds of neighbors often develop a twisted sense of entitlement over your life. They convince themselves that simply living near you gives them access to you. They mask their behavior under the guise of casual curiosity or neighborly concern. But don't be fooled. The truth is that collecting tiny, seemingly innocent details about your private life is not curiosity, it's control. This is exactly how manipulators work. They gather silent ammunition, piece by piece, without your permission, and the consequences run far deeper than a fleeting sense of discomfort. When someone can predict your schedule, your movements, even your private decisions, without you ever volunteering that information, your sense of safety begins to erode. You stop feeling truly free in your own home. You begin to censor yourself, weighing every word, wondering which conversation has been overheard, what has already been catalogued. From a Stoic perspective, however, the path forward is crystal clear. You cannot control who other people choose to be, but you can absolutely control the boundaries you set. Marcus Aurelius taught that external events hold power only when we grant them authority over our minds. If your privacy feels invaded, don't lash out recklessly. Instead, reclaim control by deciding what information ever leaves the sanctity of your space. Start with a simple test. Drop a fictional detail into casual conversation within earshot of your home, say. Mention a trip you're not really planning to take. If that same neighbor later brings it up with a knowing smile, you'll have your answer. Crude, yes, but brutally effective. Meanwhile, strengthen your defenses. Keep sensitive conversations away from open windows. Use white noise machines to mask sound against thin walls. Be intentional with your online presence, because even the smallest details, a location tag or a casual update, can become weapons in the wrong hands. Understand this. Creating strong boundaries around your information isn't paranoia. It's wisdom. It's the same principle the Stoics lived by: protecting what is rightfully yours. Your mind, your peace, your private life. These are sacred, and they deserve a wall of defense against those who fail to respect the invisible lines you are entitled to draw. Because here's the reality: a neighbor who feels entitled to the unseen corners of your life isn't just nosy. They're actively erasing the line that separates public interaction from private existence. And once that line is crossed, reclaiming it requires not fear, not rage, but a firm, strategic defense of your personal sovereignty. And speaking of protecting, What's yours if you find this knowledge valuable? Don't forget to subscribe right now. Your future self will thank you for choosing preparation over regret. Sign 4. There's physical evidence around your property. The fourth sign that your neighbor is monitoring you is impossible to dismiss as imagination. This time it's not about vague feelings or subtle patterns, it's something you can see, touch, and confirm with your own eyes. Physical evidence. Unmistakable signs that someone has crossed too close into your personal space, observing, touching, gathering information without your knowledge or consent. Imagine this: a man named Richard, living in a quiet suburban neighborhood, had a small habit, almost a subconscious ritual. Each time he came home, he would leave his welcome mat slightly tilted, a tiny, personal signature of comfort and belonging. It wasn't something most people would notice, but to him, it was home. One weekend, after returning from a short trip away, Richard froze at the sight before him. His welcome mat wasn't tilted anymore. It was perfectly straightened, as if someone had adjusted it with meticulous care. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe the wind had shifted it, he told himself. Maybe he was imagining things. But the next morning, another detail caught his eye. The potted plant he always angled toward the sun was now facing the street. Again, he dismissed it. Perhaps he had forgotten. Perhaps it was nothing. Yet just a few days later, he walked up to his mailbox, only to find it slightly ajar. No mail had been delivered that day. These weren't coincidences. They were small, deliberate disruptions, easy to dismiss if you wanted to. But deep down, Richard knew the truth. Someone wasn't simply passing by his home. Someone was interacting with it, observing, testing the invisible boundaries between the outside world and his private sanctuary. And that is what makes this sign so emotionally devastating. When physical objects inside your personal sphere are disturbed, it's not just an invasion of space, it's a psychological invasion. Your home, the one place where you should feel utterly secure, suddenly feels penetrable. A crack forms in your sense of safety, and through that crack, unease begins to spread. Subtle disruptions often speak louder than words if you know how to listen. A letter that seems opened and clumsily resealed. A package placed somewhere different than usual. Blinds slightly tilted in a way you never left them. These are not accidents. They are signals. And ignoring them doesn't make them disappear, it only emboldens the behavior, giving it room to grow bolder. Security experts often recommend simple yet effective telltales. Place a sliver of clear tape across your doorframe. Slip a thin piece of paper between the door and the jamb before you leave. If you return and find it broken, you'll know someone has entered, and if you do discover evidence, don't dismiss it. Document it carefully. Take date-stamped photos. Keep a private journal with times, observations, and even your feelings. This isn't paranoia. It's preparation. It's building a solid foundation of proof that may protect you if the situation escalates. The emotional weight of these discoveries is immense. Once trust in the sanctity of your home cracks, it doesn't heal easily. Every creak of the floorboards, every misplaced item becomes a haunting reminder of your vulnerability. You begin to question not just your neighbors, intentions, but the safety of the entire community around you. Yet from a Stoic perspective, there is a vital truth you must hold onto. You cannot stop every external intrusion. What you can control is how you respond internally. As Epictetus taught, it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. Recognizing the violation is necessary, but panicking is not. The Stoic way is calm, rational preparation, secure your home, document the evidence, and fortify your peace of mind. Because physical evidence of surveillance is more than coincidence. It is a warning siren, a red line crossed. Proof that curiosity has already turned into unhealthy fixation. And when your instincts raise that alarm, you must listen, protect your space, and above all, protect the calm sanctuary of your mind. The fifth and final sign that your neighbor isn't just nosy, but has crossed into something far more dangerous, is when simple curiosity mutates into outright obsession. Studies reveal that in more than 70% of stalking cases, the victim actually knew the stalker personally, and all too often, they ignored the early warning signs, dismissing them as harmless interest or simple concern. But escalation rarely happens overnight. It creeps in quietly, normalizing itself step by step, until what once felt like mild discomfort transforms into something genuinely dangerous. Think for a moment about your own life. Have you ever had a small interaction with a neighbor that left you uneasy? Maybe the way they lingered just a little too long in conversation. Maybe the way their comments seemed oddly timed, almost as if they knew thoughts you'd never spoken aloud. And how many times did you brush aside that discomfort, just to avoid feeling paranoid or to avoid being labeled rude? We all do it. We silence instincts that were never meant to be polite, they were meant to keep us alive. Take Karen, for example. She lived in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac and thought nothing of the neighbor who always waved a little too enthusiastically every time she left for work. At first, it felt friendly, but then he began asking strangely specific questions about her job details she couldn't recall ever sharing. One evening, after a private phone call where she mentioned taking a weekend trip, a call made behind closed doors, she returned home to find a note tucked under her doormat. Have a great trip. No one else knew about her plans. The coincidence jolted her. Yet, even then, she convinced herself it was harmless. But it wasn't single quotes within weeks. That same neighbor escalated further, stepping into her backyard while she was away, claiming he was just checking on the property. Karen's story is not unique. It's a textbook example of how boundary violations start small, then spiral. What begins as lingering conversations or oddly timed remarks can evolve into something far more sinister psychologically. This shift from casual curiosity to unhealthy fixation is deeply disturbing. At that point, you're no longer seen as a neighbor or even a person, you're seen as an object, something to monitor, to control, to intrude upon. And when a neighbor begins positioning themselves as your protector, your confidant, while subtly isolating you from the community around you, it isn't kindness. It's manipulation, strategic, designed to make you dependent, vulnerable, and easier to control. From a Stoic point of view, The correct response must be both immediate and rational. Marcus Aurelius taught that external threats do not define us, our actions do. That's why documentation becomes your shield. Record dates, times, conversations, and every odd detail, no matter how small. Build a timeline not for emotional release, but for defense. And if escalation continues. Remember this. Legal tools exist to protect you. Restraining orders, cease and desist letters, anti-stalking laws. Do not hesitate to involve law enforcement. Early their role is to intervene long before the situation becomes tragic. Just as important. Reach out to trusted friends and family. Isolation is a predator's weapon. Connection is yours. When someone escalates into obsession, their goal is to cut you off from others, to make you easier to manipulate. Don't let them succeed. Because obsession rarely arrives with flashing red lights. It tiptoes in disguised as politeness, as coincidence, as casual concern. And that's why recognizing the shift early and acting with courage is absolutely vital. But remember, courage doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you move forward wisely, even in the presence of it. No, fear doesn't mean the absence of danger. It means you act wisely to protect yourself, even while fear whispers in the background. Your instincts are ancient tools honed through thousands of years of human survival. Trust them, because once a neighbor crosses the invisible line into obsession, silence will never keep you safe, only decisive action will. And if you've stayed with me until this very moment, congratulations. You've joined the rare 1% who can actually tell the difference between a genuinely friendly neighbor and a full-time amateur spy living next door. You now know the signs, the subtle traps, and most importantly, the strategies to reclaim and protect your sanctuary before someone else turns it into their personal reality show. Remember this. Awareness is not about paranoia. It's not about living in constant fear. It's about wisdom. It's about locking the door before the wolf even thinks about knocking. Because you deserve to live in a home where the curtains can stay open, where your heart can rest in peace, and where every sound at the mailbox isn't a trigger for suspicion. So, trust your instincts. Protect your space. Guard your peace of mind. That's not paranoia, that's strength. And if this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Become part of a community that refuses to live with one eye open. Hit that subscribe button to join us here at Stoic Capsule, where we turn awareness into armor and fear into wisdom. If you found this message valuable, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because knowledge only becomes powerful when it spreads. And hey, the next video waiting for you isn't random. It's your next shield, your next layer of protection. Click it now, and your future self will thank you for choosing preparation over regret.